All right, hello students. This is Mr. Spilker, assistant principal that works with the ninth grade, and I'm joined by...
This is Trent Steele, assistant principal at Papillion La Vista South, and I am so excited about the student handbook. Woo! Woo! This is my favorite time of year when we get to go over this whole thing. It's very exciting.
This presentation is going to be helpful to you. It's going to save you possibly some trouble down the road. We want you to listen carefully and learn from some of the key points that we will make in our video here today. All right, I'm going to go ahead and introduce to you our administrative team for this year. Mr. Johnson, our head principal, will be working with 10th grade. So if you're a 10th grader, your go-to is Mr. Johnson. Our 11th grade principal this year is Mr. Grell. Our 9th grade principal, Mr. Spilker, myself. Mr. Steele, the one and only, will be working with seniors. And then Mr. Van Akron is an assistant principal that serves as our activities director. So that will be our administrative team for this school year.
Hey, see how I'd look with a mustache?
We could definitely do that.
Hey, not bad.
He may grow one, folks. He may grow one. All right, Titans, we want to introduce to you our counselors for this year. Our 9th grade counselor is Mrs. Brenda Segu. Our O through Z, 10th through 12th grade counselor is Mr. Jim Whitcomb. So when you think of Mr. Whitcomb, just think of the Wizard of Oz. Mr. Brad Richmouth will be A through G, Ag. He grew up on a farm, agriculture. He grew up on a farm. For A through G, think of Mr. Richmouth. Then Mrs. Teresa Holton will be H through N. Her name starts with an H and it ends with an N. Holton, H through N. Then Ms. Renee Mead will be our post-secondary specialist, and she also works with academy students and with our ACT testing. And then last but not least is Ms. Jenna Lopez. She is our school social worker for this year.
So the student handbook is a very important document, and the first thing you need to know about it is where it's located. It is always located on our school website. Also, you can access it at different points throughout the building because we have posters up that have a QR code where you can access it just directly through that QR link. Or if you have questions about how to access it, you can always see your building level administrator. We can help you. And here's the key thing, everybody. This is why it's important. The handbook gives you notices about your rights as a student. These include non-discrimination, privacy, and also very important due process when it comes to school rules and school procedures. It also talks about academic standards and the things you need for graduation, the requirements you need to meet, and then also, and very importantly, school citizenship rules. So it's an important document, it's a legal document, and you need to know how to access it.
All right, we want to say a few words about academics. When it comes to academics, we want you to think ownership. We want you to own your academic success here at Papillion La Vista South High School. There's a gradual transfer of ownership for your academics. When you are in elementary school, a lot of the times your parents are taking part in that. As you go to middle school and then high school, that ownership transfers fully to you. The student handbook contains information about academic policies, grading, guidance service, and eligibility. You always want to make sure you protect your eligibility, as we'll talk about on our next slide. Make sure to check your school email frequently. Staff will be sending you important information throughout the year. The school bulletin is also sent to you daily. We encourage you to use school email to communicate with your teachers. Just remember, the Titan way includes ownership. In your education, your academics are all about ownership.
Okay, and while we're talking about, and Mr. Spilker mentioned the idea of eligibility, this is something that Mr. Van Akron, our activities director, would want you all to know. You must be aware of NCAA and NAIA rules about eligibility for playing sports in college, and especially you need to be aware about rules dealing with NSAA eligibility. In other words, your ability to compete in activities and athletics while you're in high school. There are specific rules about this. You need to have a minimum number of credits. This is important in the student handbook, and you need to be aware of it.
Don't forget, students, 4 classes. Teacher aide does not count. Office aide does count. Study halls do not count. All right, let's talk a little bit about where the student handbook applies. The student handbook obviously applies on our school campus, within our walls. That's an easy one. But the student handbook also applies to activity online that affects our learning environment here at school. So if you post something on Instagram or Snapchat that then affects the learning environment, you're held accountable for that, even though it may happen outside of our walls. School activities, both home and away, the handbook applies. Field trips that you may go on for your different clubs, overnight school trips, those also are activities that are included in the student handbook.
The key goal of the student handbook and of what we're trying to do here is to preserve and protect the educational environment at school. But sometimes things off campus can impact the educational environment at school, and if they do, the student handbook does apply. The other thing that's mentioned in the student handbook is something that we're going to be coming back to again and again throughout the year, and it's this idea of the Titan Way. You've probably seen posters like the one on this screen throughout the building. We're going to be coming back to this during Titan time and talking about what it means. But the basic stuff, these are things you already know. Attend class, be on time, be ready to learn. The next thing I would say is reporting bullying. There is a large section in our student handbook dealing with the process for addressing bullying and harassment. Our school is one of the best schools that I've ever seen when it comes to reporting things. That's another example of ownership. Students report things to adults when they aren't right, when something isn't right, especially when it comes to bullying. Continue to do that. Cafeteria, continue to do a good job. Things have been going well so far. We want you to keep up the good work. We will be talking about that more in Titan time. And then finally in the handbook, there is information about appearance and dress.
Fighting is never acceptable. Harmful or unwanted touching of another person is not acceptable. It is a violation of school rules and can also lead to criminal charges. Frequently, fights, even among good friends, begin with what is often referred to as just messing around. As in, oh, we were just messing, and then one thing led to another. That's why messing, sometimes called horseplay or roughhousing, is not permitted on campus. In addition, punching back is never an act of self-defense. If you are in a situation of fighting, get yourself out of there. Whatever is on you, in your backpack, in your locker, or in your vehicle, you possess. Even if you do not own the item, if it is in your possession, you are responsible for it. And if that item is against school rules, such as drugs, weapons, tobacco, vapes, alcohol, or even stolen property, you will face consequences for such possession. Always be mindful of what you post or repost online. This gets to the idea of ownership that we were talking about with the Titan Way. You own what appears on your social media accounts, your Twitter accounts, Snapchat, Instagram. It may not seem fair, but that is the way society views it. And if that information disrupts our learning environment here at Papio South, then there is going to be a school consequence for it. Try not to bring overly valuable items on campus. If you do, secure them the best you can. Make sure that your locker is locked tight. Keep tabs on all of your items, especially your backpack, and do not leave those items unattended. All right, we want to go ahead here and cover some points of emphasis for the 18-19 school year. These are just going to be quick little, hey, let's make sure we take care of this aspect of the student handbook. And the first one I want to talk about here is your valuables. Make sure you keep track of all your belongings at all times. PE is one of the worst spots for this, so make sure to not leave your school bag unattended, especially in the PE locker rooms. If your backpack doesn't fit in your PE locker, then talk to one of the teachers in the locker room and have them lock it in their office.
I would completely agree with that, and sometimes people will kind of rig their locks where they aren't completely locked in the PE locker room, or maybe they just think, oh, I know everybody in here and nobody's going to mess with my stuff. That's the wrong way to think. You need to be aware and you need to keep track of all the things, especially the valuables you bring into school.
Another point of emphasis we have for the 18-19 school year is dress code. The big thing I want you to remember here is that skin is not in. We are here at the high school level to prepare you to be college and career ready. No headwear is allowed in the building, and this includes bandanas, hoods, and stocking caps. If your shirt is even questionable, please make sure to wear a sweater over it. And I know our pictures don't come out here very well, but these are shirts that we would consider to be acceptable and not need a sweater over it. If you look over here on the right column though, if you look at those shirts would be considered unacceptable, and these shirts we would want you to wear with a sweater over them. All right, skin is not in.
Another thing that we need to be aware of, sometimes there are students who don't like to be in the cafeteria during lunch, but we need students to be in a location where they can be accounted for. It's important that we know where they are at. So the first thing is students need to be in the cafeteria. Students are allowed, however, to be in the library with a pass and special permission from their grade level principal. If you have a question or want to do that, please see your grade level administrator. But otherwise, we need you to be in the cafeteria at lunch.
The Shield and also the Hall of Champions are off limits during lunch. We have limited supervision, so we need our students to be in areas where we can supervise them. So no Shield during lunch and no Hall of Champions during lunch. The parking lot is another area we want to address. Reminder that you must drive with reduced speed in the parking lot. The speed limit in the parking lot is not 25 miles an hour. In the parking lot, you should keep your speed limit to 10 to 15 miles per hour. Visitor spots are for visitors only and not for students. Students that park in visitor spots may be ticketed. Handicap spots are only for those with disabilities. Please do not park in a handicap spot unless you have a handicap tag. There is absolutely no parking in fire zones. If you're unsure of what a fire zone is, that's the red curbs. The red curbs are painted red because those curbs cannot be parked on in order to get emergency vehicles through if an emergency were to occur. So red is bad. Do not park on it. And then last but not least, you must have a parking tag to park on campus. This includes the football parking lot. Okay, all of our lots on our campus, you must have a parking tag to park in.
And this kind of goes without saying, but our school is a closed campus. That means you can't leave for lunch or at any other time during your scheduled day unless you've been excused by a parent. If you need to go out to your vehicle for any reason, just check in at the office before you go, so there isn't a lot of coming and going between campus and the parking lot. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about is tardies, and this is something that's a little bit different this year. One of the things that we have noticed over time, and not just this year but in previous years, is especially at the beginning of the day, we have a lot of students, and we're talking about some days almost near 100 students by our count, sometimes more, sometimes less, but coming in after the 8 o'clock bell. They are not coming in a hurry always. Sometimes they have a Starbucks or a Scooters in their hand, and they're just kind of taking it easy as they walk in the building. We want students to be on time, especially to their first period class, especially to their arrival to school. What is this about? This is about the Titan Way theme of respect. It's a matter of respect to be in your class, ready to learn, ready to go when the 8 o'clock bell rings. Why do we want to do this? Why is this important? It's important because you're all going to have jobs someday where you're going to be expected to be on time and ready to go. It's just very simple as that. Mr. Spilker.
Yeah, I just think I would remember here, students, that you're allowed 3 late to school occurrences per semester. On days in which we identify that there is bad traffic due to weather or a traffic accident, we'll excuse all tardies. For example, on Monday, there was heavy rains, heavy winds, traffic was bad. We set the start time for our teachers at 8:10. All right, the administrators will make that decision and communicate it to our teachers, and we'll make sure we're doing it in a fair manner. What we need you to understand as students is that there is an emphasis this year on getting to school on time. Don't hit snooze. When that alarm clock gets up, get up to school, get ready, be here in class on time, ready to go at 8 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and at 8:20 on Wednesday. Also want to mention this no credit status because this is new. If we get to a point when a student reaches 10 tardies, the grade level administrator will place that student in no credit status. If that student then makes an improvement, they could possibly receive credit at the end of the semester. If they do not make an improvement, then the decision between the administrator and the teacher may be that that student does not get credit for the class. So let's make it a priority to be at school on time and not even have to get to these numbers of 4, 6, 8, and 10. Our tardies to class are the same as last year. Once you're at school, we expect you to be there on time. 3 and 4, your teacher are going to handle. 5 will be a night school from your administrator. 6, you may be withdrawn from the class. Once you're at school, make sure you get to class on time. If you're going to be late for a reason like finishing a test or because of an issue changing out of PE class, just make sure you get a pass from that teacher so that your tardy is excused. No pass will equal a tardy, and then our tardy policy will come into play.
Yes. And again, unexcused absences, this is the same as in previous years, but with the exception of the no credit status that Mr. Spilker was talking about earlier. What this no credit status is about and what it means is it basically, it's a final warning, and it's putting the ownership back on you, back on the student. If you're placed in no credit status, it's presumed that you are not on track to receive credit for that class. But you then have the power. At that point, you own what happens next. You have the power to show improvement, or you have the power to choose not to show improvement. And we hope that you'll take the course of trying to improve. We don't want to get to that point, but that's another added aspect that we are focusing on in this year.
Titans, we want to give you a heads up today. Final exams, December 19th, 20th, and 21st. That is a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's going to be the same schedule as last year where you take approximately 2 to 3 finals per day. Make sure you're planning your vacations around those. I know a lot of people go out and travel around the holidays. Just make sure you're here on December 19th, 20th, and 21st. Same schedule that we used last year. 3-day finals with that early release at 1:30.
Mr. Spelker, I don't know about you, but I had a great time with all of this talking about the student handbook. How do you feel about it?
I feel great. Students, you got to remember this. You don't get into education because you want to get kids in trouble. You get into education because you want to help kids. The favorite part of our job as administrators, myself, Mr. Steele, Mr. Grell, Mr. Van Acker, and Mr. Johnson, is to prevent trouble. And that's what we're trying to do with this handbook video. We're just trying to educate you on some of the different rules that we have here at the school. Our rules are for safety, and our rules are to make sure that you have a great experience here at Papio South. So it's all about prevention. Let's have a great year, Titans. It's off to a great start. Let's keep it rolling.
Now go learn.
Go Titans.